I edit videos for a living, and my boss just called to complain. He says my latest edit is not scary enough and wants more trauma. I am honestly just trying to get paid and survive. I sit down at my desk to grind through another project, but suddenly, my ceiling starts vibrating. The people upstairs are banging drums and chanting some weird stuff. It is driving me absolutely insane. Cut to the very next morning. I run into the upstairs neighbors in the elevator. It is an old lady and her son. The son looks completely unhinged and literally screams right in my face. I confront them about the constant noise and chanting. The mom apologizes and gives me a sob story. She says her kid used to be totally normal until something bad happened to him. I honestly do not care because I just want some quiet. Back in my room, the creepy chanting upstairs starts all over again. I am so broke that I cannot afford to move out, so I just put on my red gaming headphones and crank the volume to the absolute max. I decide to completely ignore the weird vibes and just focus on my screen. I type frantically and edit for hours while the bizarre chanting echoes through the building. I finally finish my edit after hours of grinding. I stretch my arms and take off my headphones. That is when I realize something super weird. The upstairs apartment is suddenly dead quiet. The chanting has completely stopped. I am way too exhausted to overthink it, so I just crawl into bed and pass out. That is when the absolute worst nightmares begin. I wake up in a cold sweat. Things feel totally off in my room. I look out the window and see a creepy woman in a red dress staring right at me. Then I realize I am still dreaming. I wake up again and walk to the kitchen to get a glass of water. Suddenly, a demonic smiling face jump scares me. I am trapped in an endless loop of nightmares and cannot wake up. Cut to the real world the next morning. My mom calls me and tells me to look at the news. My brain is completely broken, and I am acting totally paranoid. I back away from my own mother in sheer terror. I sprint out of my apartment building like an absolute lunatic. The cops are everywhere, and the whole neighborhood is watching me scream. Then the camera pans over to the old lady and her son. They are watching me from the crowd. The son looks completely normal and healthy now. He points at me and tells his mom that I look crazy. The old lady just watches me suffer and drops the sickest plot twist ever in her mind. She did a dark ritual upstairs to cure her son, but she did not destroy the demon. She transferred the curse to me. She sacrificed my sanity so her kid could live a normal life. My wife and I bought this insane piece of tech. It is basically a shared dream machine. We just plug these wires into our heads before bed, and we can literally hang out inside the exact same dream. At first, it was a total vibe. We went on virtual dates in Paris, flew through the sky like literal superheroes, and just lived out our best fantasies. It felt 100% real. I honestly thought our marriage was peaking, but then things got a little complicated. One night, my wife fell asleep before we could sync up. I figured I would just test out the solo mode to see what else this machine could do. I basically tried to spawn in a different girl to chill with. Nothing crazy, just seeing if the system worked. But the machine completely glitched out. The random girl suddenly morphed right into my angry wife. She had somehow linked in and caught me virtually cheating on her. I woke up in an absolute panic. She was already awake and screaming at me. I tried to gaslight her and say it was just a stupid dream. I told her it does not count as cheating if it literally only happens inside my own head. But she was not having it at all. She looked at me like I was absolute trash. After that night, our whole vibe completely shifted. She started acting super quiet and honestly, just terrifying. A few days later, the nightmares started. Every single time I plugged into the machine, I got trapped in pure agony. I am talking about getting burned alive, getting thrown off giant cliffs, and getting sliced by massive spinning saws. It was literally torture every single night. At first, I thought my brain was just feeling guilty about the dream cheating, but I kept waking up every morning with insane pain in my temples. Something felt completely wrong. I decided to set up a hidden camera in our bedroom to see what was actually happening while I was asleep. The next day, I checked the footage and my jaw literally dropped. The video showed my wife waiting until I was fully asleep. Then she would attach the dream wire to my head and hook it up to this weird red device. She was manually hacking my brain and forcing me to experience those brutal nightmares just to punish me. I was absolutely furious. I confronted her in the hallway, but she just smiled like a literal psycho. She basically told me I deserved it for what I did. That night, I tried to stay awake to catch her in the act, but I ended up falling asleep anyway. Suddenly, she spawned into my nightmare again, but this time she looked completely demonic. She knew I found out her little secret, and she was ready to finish me off for good. Cut to the real world the next morning. The police are taping off our bedroom. They are looking at our dead bodies on the mattress. The dream machine must have short-circuited and completely fried our brains. We got electrocuted in our sleep. The cops think it is kind of sweet that we died together in a shared dream, but then they look closer at our faces. We are both frozen with the most horrific, terrified expressions. My family is completely fake. Just look at my wife. She is standing completely alone in the pitch dark. She is chugging a massive drink. Her eyes look literally dead inside. She slowly creeps into the bedroom and just stands there. She stares at our sleeping kid like an absolute creep. The silence in the room is deafening. Suddenly, I walk in and catch her acting totally weird. I try to play it off and act normal. I ask why she is drinking so much and completely ignoring our kid lately. I point out that her depression is getting way worse and ask if she is even taking her meds. She snaps back and stares right through me. She says she never signed up for this kind of future. I try to be supportive. I remind her that raising a kid is hard for literally everyone, but we both agreed to have one. I suggest taking a chill family trip to a theme park tomorrow. I tell her to stop drinking and just go to sleep. Cut to the very next day. We are parked at a highway rest stop. The road trip vibes are totally off. The sky is gloomy and the tension in the car is super thick. I tell her to wait while I go to buy some snacks. But the second I walk away, she looks completely panicked. She grabs the sleeping baby from the car seat and literally bolts across the empty parking lot. I turn around and catch her halfway across the lot. I am super confused and ask where she is going with the baby. She hesitates and makes a completely lame excuse about needing to use the restroom. I point out there is a restroom right next to us. I take the baby back and tell her to go alone. The whole mood is ruined by her weird behavior. We give up on the theme park idea and just drive back home in total silence. Back at the apartment, things get even more strange. I am watching TV and trying way too hard to keep the peace. I ask what kind of gift we should buy for the holiday. Later, she is drinking again, and I tell her she looks dangerous tonight. Left alone, she writes a creepy handwritten note. It basically says she cannot live this fake life anymore. She looks absolutely demonic as she decides she is going to end everything. The next morning, I cook a massive, delicious breakfast spread. I want to cheer her up. I tell her we should go to the zoo instead today. The kid really loves elephants. She finally smiles and looks totally normal again. She agrees to the plan. Everything actually seems fine for a second. We spend the day out, and later that night, the kid is safely asleep in bed. I suggest making some drinks to relax. I ask her to mix up some cold highballs, but my wife is acting super sus again. While my back is turned, she quietly slips something into my glass. I take a huge gulp of my drink and say it tastes super refreshing. I look at her and tell her I will do absolutely anything to keep our kid safe and healthy. My wife stares right through me and says she will do exactly the same. Suddenly, I start choking and sweating profusely out of nowhere. I drop my glass and panic. I ask what she put in my drink. She casually admits she froze poison inside the ice cubes. And since she did not put any ice in her own glass, she is totally fine. I fall to the floor and gasp for air. As I am literally dying, I beg her to at least spare our daughter. My wife drops the sickest plot twist of the century. She looks down at my dying body and says that little girl is not our daughter. Our real daughter died a long time ago. She immediately picks up her phone and calls the cops. She tells them the child is finally safe. Fast forward and the police arrive at our apartment. It turns out my wife and I lost our biological daughter in a tragic accident. We went completely insane from the grief. We found a random little girl who looked exactly like our dead child and literally kidnapped her. My wife finally realized how insanely messed up our fake life was. She poisoned me to end the delusion. She hands the cops an apology letter for the kidnapped girl's real parents. The innocent child is finally rescued, and our twisted game is permanently over.